So do you want to go into a bit more detail about, how you categorize patients? You talked about amiable patients and analytical patients. How do you go about this?
Yeah, absolutely. So the model I use, I've tried a number of different ones in the past, and this one's called the social style model. It's the most useful one for the clinical perspective, I think, for us as clinicians, because it's not a personality model. People often go a bit wrong with it, and they think, oh, somebody who's amiable style, that must mean they're friendly. And that's not really true necessarily. All the styles can be friendly, but it's just based on observable behavior. So the way it works is we have a couple of spectra that we put people on. You've got the assertiveness spectrum, and then you've got the responsiveness spectrum. The assertiveness spectrum isn't how assertive somebody is, it's how they assert themselves, how they try to influence people. So I think we've got a couple of slides on this as well. You basically have it, on one end is the tell assertive, so that's these ones here. Tell assertive people are quite direct. If they want you to do something, they'll just tell you, I think we should do this.
Yeah.
On the other end, you've got the ask assertive. Ask assertive people are more indirect. They'll use questions to try and influence. So the example I often use is somebody who's tell assertive. If you want to go for tapas, will say, hey, let's go have tapas tonight. The ask assertive will say, oh, do you fancy tapas? Or how do you feel about tapas? It's the same thing. They're trying to influence somebody, but they're doing it with questions rather than direct statements.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And people will sit at one point on this naturally. It's not a binary black or white, but there'll be somewhere along this point there. And that's one thing you can look at, and you can start to look for signs that this person is quite tell-assertive, both in what they're saying, but also the way that they communicate. So you look at their body language, their tone of voice, these sorts of things as well.
But it occurs to me that, the slide's disappeared now, but we would pick up on that sort of style of communication probably quite quickly in clinic. How does it affect how I deal with that patient?
So what we want to do is work out where the patient is and then try and bring ourselves towards them. So for example, I'm very tell-assertive. My natural point is pretty much at the end of the scale. And if I have another patient with me who is tell-assertive, I know that, okay, I don't have to worry about the assertiveness scale so much. We can generally build rapport quite quickly. Yeah. But if there's somebody who's more ask-assertive, then I know that I need to think about modifying my behavior. So for somebody who's ask-assertive, I would probably slow down. I would talk a little bit softer. I'd leave a few more pauses. I'd give them space to ask questions. Tell-assertive people tend to be quite direct, quite fast-paced. Ask-assertive a little bit slower. And certainly early in my career, I could risk bowling a patient over who is ask-assertive by being very fast-paced, telling them everything that's going on, and not really giving them space to process things or to have their chance to think of what they want to say as well.
Right.
And that could go the other way. If you had an ask-assertive practitioner, a tell-assertive patient, they might want to speed up, pick their tone of voice up a little bit, talk a little bit faster. And just match the patient where they're at. The closer you are to the patient, the more the patient subconsciously is thinking, this person's like me. Okay, we get each other. They're going to feel more relaxed in your presence.
So we're talking about mirroring behaviour then, which I think behavioural...
Yeah, there's definitely a part of the mirroring there. So, the classic ones of looking at body language, those sorts of things can be helpful. You want to be a little bit cautious with it. The mirroring sometimes can lead people to do the same thing. So I might start sitting here like this, and you've nodded, I'll nod, and you cross your leg, I'll cross my leg. If it gets a bit too obvious, the second a patient picks up you might be doing it, you've kind of blown it. Because they'll start to think, this is seeming a little bit artificial. Yeah. So the nice thing with the social styles model is it's slightly more subtle things. They're not going to necessarily pick up that you're talking a little bit faster, for example. It wouldn't seem like an instant change.